The glass hallways of St. Clair's Academy gleamed under the fluorescent lights. It was a school for the elite, where every student wore crisp uniforms and carried the weight of their parents' legacies on their shoulders. Money wasn't a problem here, but expectations, they were heavier than stone. At the very center of that hallway stood Emily Carter, the only daughter of billionaire businesswoman Victoria Carter. Emily's small hands clutched a paper so tightly it crumpled under her grip. A giant red F bled across the page. Tears welled in her eyes until they spilled down her cheeks, leaving streaks against her flushed face. Victoria stood to her left, a vision of icy perfection in her cream-colored suit. Her arms were crossed, her expression sharp and unreadable. "Emily," she said, her voice calm but piercing, "again, how many times do we have to go through this? Do you even care about your future?" The words stabbed Emily deeper than the failing grade itself. She tried to answer, her lips trembling, but no words came. Her throat burned from holding back sobs. A few feet away, unnoticed by most, stood Michael Turner, the school janitor. His mop rested in his hands, but his attention wasn't on the floor, it was on the girl. He saw everything, her shaking hands, her silent cry for help, the cold wall between mother and daughter. And though it wasn't his place, his heart ached. He knew what it felt like to be crushed under expectations, to be seen as less than enough. Victoria finally exhaled sharply, heels clicking as she turned. "Get in the car," she ordered, striding down the hall. Emily stood frozen, her paper still clutched to her chest. That was when Michael spoke, softly but firmly. "You know," he said, his voice carrying in the quiet corridor, "an F doesn't mean failure. It just means you haven't found the way yet." Emily's tear-filled eyes darted to him, shocked that he spoke at all. Students rarely looked at him, let alone listened. Her lips quivered. "But everyone thinks I'm stupid." Michael's gaze softened. He leaned on his mop and said, "You're not stupid. You just learn differently. The world tries to fit everyone into the same mold, but the brightest lights, they never fit." For the first time, Emily's sobs slowed. Those words clung to her, a lifeline in the storm. That night back at the Carter mansion, Emily sat at her desk, surrounded by expensive textbooks and notes from the best tutors money could buy. But the letters blurred, the numbers danced, and nothing made sense. Frustrated, she slammed her book shut and whispered to herself, "Maybe I really am hopeless." She thought about Michael's words. They were simple, yet they carried more comfort than anything she had heard in months. The next day, after school, Emily lingered behind when other students left. She found Michael in the library, stacking chairs after mopping the floors. With timid steps, she approached him, holding her math book. "Mr. Turner," she whispered, "do you think you could help me, just once?" Michael looked at her surprised. He wasn't a teacher, and he knew if Victoria found out she'd never approve. But looking into Emily's eyes desperate for hope, he couldn't say no. He smiled softly. "All right, let's start simple." And so, their secret lessons began. Michael didn't lecture her the way tutors did. He broke things down using everyday life. "Fractions," he said one afternoon, tearing a sandwich in half. "It's just sharing food. Half, quarter, whole, simple as that." "Equations," he explained another day, pointing to his cleaning cart. "If one wheel's missing, the cart doesn't balance. Equations are the same. Balance them and everything works." Emily's eyes widened. For the first time, things made sense. She began to smile during lessons, small smiles that Michael cherished. But it wasn't just academics he taught her. When she got frustrated and wanted to quit, Michael reminded her, the only time failure wins is when you stop trying. Of course, it wasn't easy. Rumors began spreading around the academy. The billionaire's daughter learning from the janitor, classmates whispered cruelly, some laughed, others mocked her openly. Emily felt humiliated. One day she burst into the library in tears. "I can't do this anymore," she cried. "Everyone's laughing at me." Michael crouched to meet her eyes. His voice was steady. "Let them laugh. The world laughed at Thomas Edison too, until he lit it up. People laugh because they don't understand, but one day they'll clap. And when they do, it'll be because you didn't give up." Emily wiped her tears, his words burning into her heart. Weeks passed. Slowly, her grades began to rise. A C became a B, a B became an A. The girl who once hid her test papers now walked proudly with them. But the real test came when Victoria found out. One afternoon, she entered the library and froze. There was her daughter, sitting at a table with the janitor, laughing as she solved a problem on the board. Rage flared in her chest. "Emily Carter," Victoria's voice cut through the air like glass shattering. "What is the meaning of this? Do you have any idea how humiliating this looks? My daughter being tutored by a janitor." Emily's hands shook. She looked at her mother, then at Michael. For a moment, fear paralyzed her, but then something inside her snapped. She stood up, tears in her eyes but voice strong. "Mom, he believes in me more than any of those tutors ever did. He's the reason I'm improving. He's the reason I haven't given up." Victoria's face hardened. "Enough. We'll discuss this at home." She turned sharply, expecting Emily to follow, but Emily didn't move. For the first time, she chose to stand her ground. Michael stayed silent, respecting Emily's courage. He didn't fight back. He didn't need to. Months later, everything changed. Emily stood on the stage at the school's annual assembly, clutching a certificate, Most Improved Student of the Year. The crowd of parents and students applauded, the same voices that once mocked her now cheering. As she scanned the audience, her eyes found Michael standing at the back, leaning quietly on his mop. Their eyes met, and she smiled through her tears. That smile said it all. "Thank you, you saved me." Victoria sat in the front row, her icy mask finally melting. For the first time, she realized the truth. No amount of wealth could give her daughter what Michael had given: hope, patience, and belief. After the ceremony, she walked up to him, her voice softer than ever. "I owe you an apology," she admitted. "You've done more for Emily than all the tutors combined. You gave her back her confidence." Michael shook his head. "I only showed her what she already had inside. She just needed someone to remind her." Years later, Emily would never forget that lesson. She grew into a strong, confident young woman who wasn't afraid of failure anymore. She went on to create a foundation for struggling students, naming the very first program after Michael Turner. And whenever people asked how she turned her failures into success, she would smile and say, "Because a janitor once taught me that failure isn't the end, it's the beginning."